As the market continues to build strength here, the narrative around the super cycle, or at very least the double bubble, is starting to absolutely crystallize here as we're looking at yet another round of bullishness on the horizon. And while some metrics may suggest that September is not the month for the wild breakout on Bitcoin, it appears as if we are entering into a wild altcoin mania, also known as alt season, which we're going to be going absolutely deep on. If you guys are excited to hear about alt season, the next round of bullishness on Bitcoin, and of course the trend that has been dominating absolutely everything, which is NFTs, then all you have to do is smash that like button. Remember, each and every comment on this video is entered to win your own hardware wallet. We're actually going to be giving it away on this episode, so make sure you watch through to the very end. And as always, remember that if you guys want the newest information in the space before anyone else, helping you get into things like Bored Ape Yacht Club before they went 60x plus, then all you have to do is subscribe and put that bell notification on, because we're bringing you the entries into the most impactful and important projects in the entire crypto space before anyone else. With that said, let's dive in. So first things first, structurally, according to my buddy Will Clemente, who's been here on the channel, we hope to have him back soon, analyzing on-chain metrics, what we see here, and I really like this chart, is what we see is the hodlers. And when you see this green line dip to the bottom, that means that the least amount of long-term holders or hodlers, LTH, for a supply shock have been holding, meaning they're taking coins off the market and essentially making the market more liquid, more likely to pump. Now, what we see here is that we have already bottomed with that, with the peak over here back in April. And since we've been building back up astronomically here, working our way back up towards a higher LTH supply shock ratio. As you can see, as we get up to these levels here, this green level is where things start to turn very bullish. As you can see, we've just hit this green level once again, which would indicate that we're looking to create newer higher highs on price. This particular chart, sure, you could say maybe there's a little bit more downside, but if that downside does come in, it would be very likely that only long-term, very strong-handed holders would come to mop up the dip, meaning that this would start to reach those prized levels where we've seen astronomical price increase, like from the bottom here in 2018, or literally like we saw at the complete bottoming of the market in 2020. These are very, very good levels to be hitting. It's a complete reset on essentially the cycle where usually the people who end up selling and ruining the momentum are those short-term holders, those newbies, those smaller hands, those weaker hands. Because of this, Will says macro holding behavior has shifted as of March of last year, makes a convincing case for the end of the 4-year cycle. Now, this is one of the hottest topics that you could possibly discuss, which is the 4-year cycle still valid? Obviously, if the 4-year cycle is still valid, then we know that we have a certain amount of bullishness left here in 2021, and then we have another crypto winter. How long it lasts, what kind of winter it'll be, whether NFTs will continue to absolutely take over the world and eat the internet, I think so. Regardless of those questions, we want to know about Bitcoin, which provides so much liquidity to this market. Obviously, I could make the case that NFTs have started to make their own market, which is pretty clear, but at the same time, this is of tremendous importance for everything non-NFT related. And of course, market valuations will go astronomical if this plays out. And it certainly feels like Bitcoin, like I've been saying, has started to enter into a very different type of market cycle. I mean, look how long these cycles are apart. Look how long this is of this just cupping all the way up. And then you get these waves here that are much shorter, and it just doesn't feel the same. It doesn't look the same. And so I'll be interested to see as time goes on if this 4-year cycle is really what it's all about, or if we've entered into a new type of market cycle that is much more condensed and compact around specific narratives, like for example, gaming and NFTs, or we had the DeFi narrative. As you can see, they've created little micro cycles, or in this case, we have the L1 cycle, which we're in right now, which is currently what people are talking about for today's altcoin season. Now, it is worth noting that betting on Bitcoin during September is a historically very bearish month for Bitcoin. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. We're in a brave new world right now with the macro, with the monetary policy, with the new types of cycles. I wouldn't necessarily care what happened last September or any September when judging Bitcoin right now, but it's worth knowing that it's a bearish month. Now, this service here is declaring a crypto alt season. This is a service here that's part of Cointelegraph, and it's saying alt season is here. The alt season indicator, CT Markets Pro's metric that assesses the relative market strength of Bitcoin versus altcoin, finally flips to the alt side. And so what we see here for sure is that we know that some alts are mooning, and it's not hard to tell which ones it is. As you can see, we have Phantom absolutely going parabolic here. We have Solana making huge moves now at 100 $207. This was just around, gosh, where was Solana just a few days ago? This is one of the most impressive charts in all of cryptocurrency. It's up 100% in just 2 weeks and 230% in a month. It is absolutely crushing Solana. And then we also have another huge move, this time out of Phantom. Now, Phantom is, of course, one of my favorite, less talked about alternatives to Ethereum. You could say it's an L1. It sort of brands itself as more of a scaling solution. So we'll see how Phantom ends up working out, but I'm very happy to see a massive 24-hour candle on Phantom. Again, what we're seeing here is a little bit of hot potato between AVAX, Phantom, Solana, Cardano. What we're seeing is it's L1 season. And so the big brain play here is you want to go for ecosystem projects within Solana and AVAX, within Phantom, and then you want to go for the L1s that haven't gone crazy yet, like Algorand, Cosmos, and other ones like that, Polygon. Those are the ones that I believe are going to have their time in the light. As we're seeing, we're going further and further down the sort of totem pole here to find the next hot ecosystem. And I don't necessarily trust these pumps because there is fundamental news for sure, but it's not all fundamentals driven. It's not all user metrics driven. This is a lot of sort of whale games moving around liquidity. So we'll see how this works out, but it does feel as though L1 FOMO season is back in full effect. And I would look at L1s that haven't gone parabolic yet as an amazing opportunity, always trying to look around the corners to see where the next move is, or of course, looking at ecosystem projects in big ecosystems like Solana and Cardano. And if there's any better proof of Cardano's rise or how fast these ecosystems are taking shape, look at this image of Cardano just a few months ago. Here, I'll bring this image back to being a little bit smaller here. But look at this image of Cardano's ecosystem just a few months ago. And you see that it's got, I don't know, like a dozen or two dozen projects on it. And now look at it just a month or two later, and we have, I think, maybe 200 projects based on rough estimations here, but it's a massive, massive jump that we've seen here out of Cardano. And so that's how fast these ecosystems can take shape. And that's what's really, really exciting is the amount of financing and capital that's floating around right now is allowing for tons and tons of projects to absolutely rocket just with a little bit of excitement. So don't sleep on these new ecosystems, as some of these projects will become the next pancake swap, the next sushi swap, the next whatever, you name it, important DeFi protocol, the important NFT protocol on these new ecosystems. That's what you want to be looking for. So now we've talked a little bit about L1 alt season. I think that's a huge, huge narrative over the next few days and weeks, especially if you're not so interested in NFTs or you just don't understand it. But the reality is right now we are still in the midst of JPEG euphoria, mania. And despite as insane, as crazy as it's gotten, no matter about all of that, there's something inside me that believes we still have some newer and higher heights to achieve, and here's why. First of all, let me bring this up before I recap the news. We have Vincent Van Gogh, who's one of the best art collectors in the entire space. He's got crazy amounts of art blocks and fidenzas. He's just an amazing collector. Like, I want to rip my eyes out when I see his collection. It's absolutely so crazy. Every piece is like $1 million piece. He's now teaming up with the team over at Three Arrows Capital, one of the biggest, most important investors in this space, to build a VC or an NFT fund. Their thesis is simple. They believe the best way to gain exposure to the cultural paradigm shift being ushered in by NFTs is owning top pieces in the most desirable sets. So I've talked about this a few times before, and this is one thing I wanted to reflect on for a second, because I'm getting some comments on my Twitter, on my YouTube, and I want to make my content for everybody. But I understand that the NFT game has really, really rapidly, or maybe always been, at least at this current stage, really a game that makes it much easier on the ultra wealthy, on people who have a ton of disposable capital to invest. And so you need to understand that right now the land grab is going crazy. People do know that some of this stuff is going to become priceless artifacts of the internet, stuff that will hold and grow to achieve absolutely astronomical value. We know that for sure, but we don't know what it is. And so my theory has always been that blue chips, blue chips, blue chips. It's like you want to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum because those are the ones that are for sure going to be where the institutions end up investing and all that. Now, with regards to the art stuff or with regards to the collectibles NFTs, it's pretty clear that crypto punks, Bored Apes, art blocks, and these types of blue chips are the ones that everybody wants most and the ones that are most likely to survive. But now they've become so expensive that people are getting priced out, and even getting, for example, a new mint on the new Bored Ape collection for 2.8 Ethereum is too expensive for a lot of people, as that's over $10,000 or almost $10,000. The reality is that the market has reached a place where it's hard to play if you're new, and it becomes incredibly risky. And so obviously, there was that mint season where I was telling you guys you could just go in and pretty much mint any new NFT project for 0.08 ETH, a few $100, and you'd probably get a nice gain off of it. The truth is, a lot of these projects are still holding and growing in value, and there's actually even one this week that I think could do really well. Again, I don't really want to predict. I haven't been like calling NFT projects per se, because it is so risky, and I don't want people to make any decisions in NFT land based on what I say. I legitimately don't, because it's such a personal journey, a lot of this stuff. But the one thing that's very clear is these high level pieces like punks, like art blocks, are going to get absolutely swarmed. That high level, that blue chip level of NFT is something that is, in my opinion, going to accelerate at a crazy rate, despite how ridiculously hard it is to get in. Now they're becoming like crystallized. So what I believe is the next big wave is fractionalization. And while fractionalization isn't perfect, and it kind of exposes NFTs to the issues with sort of market manipulation in traditional fungible tokens, it'll still allow for some people to get some exposure to these assets. And a good example of this is here we have Punk 0x650D. He's saying he sees the Punk floor as too high, essentially. So what he's going to do is actually fractionalize his Punk in fractional art, and he wants to put as many of these tokens as he can on Uniswap so it becomes really liquid, so it stays an easy way to get in and out of. And he's calling this floor because he wants this to really represent the floor of CryptoPunks. And so he is going to fractionalize his 104 Punk collection. And this is very, very interesting to see, right? And so he's going to be making this hopefully a project where it can appeal and have room for a lot of people to get some exposure, as little or as much exposure as you want, by buying a fungible ERC20. And I think this is the next wave, which is fractionalization of the top pieces, because in the end, most people can't afford to spend $1 million on a JPEG. However, the price appreciation and the growth and trajectory of the asset class is undeniable. And the fact is that it seems as though, given what we're seeing here with the smartest, biggest money in the entire space, Three Arrows Capital, not the biggest, but these guys are absolutely the first to the party with DeFi, the first to the party as institutions to NFTs. I don't think that they're missing shots right now. And I think that the reason why they're getting very serious about collecting art blocks with Vincent van Gogh is because they see the next phase here of museums and art galleries starting to adopt this stuff as true art. So that's what I see as happening, and I believe that if you look at the art world, that stuff just continues to grow. And so I think it's pretty reasonable to think that some of these pieces will continue to be astronomical, and thankfully we have fractionalization here to at least allow for more people to get into the game. And so as predicted, we've seen tons of corporate brands jump into NFT. This stuff is literally eating the internet. It's growing so fast, attracting new audiences like crazy, and it's not a surprise now to understand why the values are going up, because like I said, you just don't need as much background to connect to, relate to an image or a piece of content. And that is way more accessible than what crypto has been up to this point. And it's really infecting and becoming contagious for a lot of people. And a lot of people are starting to lose their sense of being able to judge this stuff because it's such a mania. But it says something when a company like Visa, which owns no Bitcoin, no Ethereum, now owns a CryptoPunk, and we see Budweiser buying a Tom Sachs rocket factory. You see here the ability to make headlines and to interact with community and to do sort of fun and interesting community-driven, social-driven things in NFTs is way more interesting, in my opinion, than with fungible tokens. So this stuff is going to continue. NFTs, like I said, are going to be bigger, in my opinion, than the rest of crypto combined. We'll go ahead. I know that's a hot take, but I believe it will happen. And hopefully understanding that like these blue chips, to me, are the safest way to invest. Obviously, it's crazy because they're so hard to get into, but hopefully with some fractionalization, like I said, it will be more democratized when more people can get small levels of exposure to the best asset class. Because buying some kind of mid-tier, mid-effort NFT, hoping it goes up, and just not being able to afford the top NFTs, I believe that's like you're buying real estate in a new town that nobody knows if it's going to take off or not, as opposed to buying something in like LA or New York where you know over the long period of time this stuff's going to go up because everybody wants something in that area. And so the real estate metaphor I think is very real here, and imagining a virtual land grab in your head is what you should be doing. And so ideally you'd rather have a piece of a building in LA than of course a whole building in, the middle of a cornfield in the middle of the country in a place that no one's ever gone. So that's kind of the analogy, is you want to be where everyone wants to be in NFT land, because this market will soften. And in my opinion, the only things that will stick around are those ultra blue chip, super, super high quality things, while a lot of things will see a massive, massive decline. A little quick DeFi update. We see Convex Finance up to $6.6 billion in TVL. Absolutely crazy. And they've made $100 million for their users. Absolutely astounding. I keep telling you, Convex is one of the most slept on and underappreciated projects in the whole space. But just to be clear, no project is above hacks, as Cream Finance, which is really well established, got hacked for $19 million in a set of 17 transactions. This stuff is not perfect, and it is still very risky. And so as exciting as it is with DeFi, we just need to understand that it needs to mature a bit before it can attract the billions and billions and trillions that need to come in to really send this market to where it should be, which is a total disruption of traditional finance. So what a crazy time to be alive, with NFTs continuing to explode, art blocks looking like the main receptacle for the next institutional wave of NFT adoption after punks. But most importantly, we could be looking at a true super cycle based on on-chain data, as well as another, at the very least, explosion of bullishness here in 2021. And of course, we're in the midst of L1 alt season, which we've been keeping track of here for quite some time. Now, Phantom is the recipient of much pumpage and much honor, and it's very exciting to see a great project like Phantom, which we've been talking about since, well, early 2020, getting this kind of recognition. So big shout out to the Phantom team. But there are more L1s that are coming, I believe that, because this liquidity is jumping around trying to find the absolute best ecosystem. We now have Cardano, Solana, we now have Phantom, AVAX, and so it's only going to stand to reason that other high quality ecosystems, eyes on Cosmos, eyes on Algorand, eyes on other projects that just haven't seen that level of hype and pumpage, I believe that they will have their moment in the sun, as well as Polygon, who really hasn't pumped super hard since this dip has taken effect. So I believe that there are a lot of other L1s to look at. And then if you're going to look at Solana or Cardano, you want to find the ecosystem projects there, because those can take massive, massive market share. Solana right now seems to be the flavor of the moment, the flavor of the day, the week, the month. And so huge shout out to the Solana holders. And I believe that that high quality user experience is going to be one that will attract and maintain a lot of users. So let me know what you guys think is the best Solana ecosystem project. Maybe we'll check it out here on the channel and cover it. As always, if you got some value out of this, please smash that like button. Remember, each and every comment on this video is entered to win your own hardware wallet. And yes, we're going to be giving away one right now. All right, let's generate a number 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Here we go, 100x NFT gains. And let's go ahead and pick a comment here. Visa and CryptoPunks, that's crazy. Pamela D, you won. Go ahead, DM me or tweet at me on Twitter, DM me on Telegram at Elio Trades, and I will get you your ledger. Thanks everyone for playing. My name is Elio Trades. You can find me on Twitter at Elio Trades, and I'll see you very soon on the next episode.